2012 was a bit of a sort of a magical season for the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, you go from having one of the worst records in the league in 2011 to finding a way to hang around, keep finding a way to win games, and then AP obviously has his tremendous 2012, his MVP season. You ride his coattails late in the year, and you find a way to make the playoffs. Well, 2013, I think, frankly, saw the Minnesota Vikings crash back down to earth, and for all the people that sit there and said to me when I talked about their end of season back in the winter that it was the defense that was the failing of the team. To a degree, you're absolutely correct, but that's not telling the entire story. The failure of Christian Ponder and the other players at the quarterback position also played a large role in the struggles of the Vikings in 2013, ultimately leading to the 1-7 start, Leslie Frazier getting fired at the end of the season, and the Mike Zimmer era officially beginning. And it was a bit of a busy offseason for the Minnesota Vikings. They were a little active in free agency. They went and found, Mike Zimmer's Geno Atkins type of tackle and New York Giant Linval Joseph. They went and found a corner to complement their young stud Xavier Rhodes by going and signing Captain Munnerlyn away from the Carolina Panthers. They brought in Corey Wooten from the Bears, a versatile defensive lineman. And then you're talking about a team that once again ended up with 2 picks in the first round of the draft, and they spent one of them on a pass rusher for the front seven that they desperately needed in Anthony Barr out of UCLA. And then, they went and found what they hoped to be the anti-Christian Ponder, their eventual long-term franchise quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. In terms of notable losses for the Vikings in the offseason, probably the most notable one would be Jared Allen. And I argue how much of a notable loss was that really, because even with him there, you still found a way to finish 5-10-1 last season. It wasn't like your defense was really winning any games or beating anybody. So, and Jared Allen had started to slowly decline over the past 2 seasons. Still a very good player, but I don't think he's quite the Jared Allen that people think of when they think of the name Jared Allen. In terms of strengths, though, for this team heading into the 2014 season, obviously all-day AP Adrian Peterson is the biggest strength of strengths that they have. As long as you have Adrian Peterson as your running back, that is your offensive identity, that is your offensive focus, that is your offensive philosophy first and foremost. To be able to have a talent the caliber of an AP, a future first ballot Hall of Famer, it sets a lot of things right for you, for your offense and for your team, frankly, as a whole. And as long as he's there, he will always be a big strength to the team. But I think there are other strengths too. I look at their secondary. I expect it to be quite improved in 2014. You've got last year's first-round pick, Xavier Rhodes, who I thought played very well as a rookie. You've got your first-round pick from 2012, one of them anyways, Harrison Smith, who I would expect to be able to stay healthy and show the type of impact potential that he did as a rookie in 2012, manning the free safety position. Then, of course, the addition of Captain Munnerlyn. I'm not so sold on the overall depth of the Minnesota Vikings secondary, but an area of the team that had been a weakness for the past few seasons, I think, has gotten a whole lot better this offseason with another year of growth for Xavier Rhodes, hopefully Harrison Smith getting healthy for them, and then bringing in Captain Munnerlyn as well. The other strength I really see in this team is a lot of young impact players. You're talking about a team in the last 3 drafts that has had a total of 7 first-round picks. You look at 2012 with Matt Khalil and Harrison Smith. 2013, there were 3 of them. There was Sharif Floyd and Xavier Rhodes and Cordero Patterson. And then 2014, this most recent draft brought him Anthony Barr and Teddy Bridgewater. And getting those first-round picks and getting that number of first-round picks potentially points to a very strong, promising future for this organization, especially if most, if not all of them, end up panning out, which several of them appear to already being on the path to panning out, notably Khalil and Harrison Smith and Xavier Rhodes and Cordero Patterson. If Barr and especially Bridgewater pan out, the future looks very bright for Minnesota, and you could start to see some of those glimpses perhaps as early as this 2014 season. Do have some question marks, obviously, the quarterback position. Are you going to go with Matt Castle to start the year? Are you going to go with Teddy Bridgewater to start the year? Are either one of them going to be able to establish themselves as the legit face of the franchise, as the quarterback? Now, what type of caliber of play are they going to get out of that quarterback position in 2014? Because it's a shame now as AP maybe starts to the tail end of his career. Do you want to waste those last couple of years with shoddy, questionable quarterback play? I also look at the linebacking core for the Vikings. You've got Greenway. He's a nice, solid player, but I don't think he's a stud. And then the rest of the linebacking core, well, it remains to be seen. If you're putting your hopes on Jasper Brinkley, good luck to you. And in terms of Anthony Barr, it remains to be seen whether he's better off at defensive end or as a 4-3 outside linebacker, if he's not a fit at all and he's better off as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I also wonder where the pass rush is going to come from this team. No more Jared Allen. Sure, you gave Everson Griffin that big, huge contract, but the big, huge contract you gave him doesn't in any way equate to the production you had gotten from him to this point in time. Are you going to get the type of pass rush you need to kind of mask that questionable linebacking core and to help out that secondary, which, while better, still has some questions in terms of its depth at all levels. And looking ahead to the schedule this season, they've got the AFC East, the NFC South, in terms of the division games, if you get what I'm saying, along with the matchups in the NFC North. And then they've also got St. Louis and they've got Washington. So their schedule isn't brutal. It isn't terrible. And that's kind of the perk sometimes of finishing last place, is that you get a last place schedule the next season. The first 6 weeks, though, are really, really tough. This is a brutal stretch. And you're talking about, and I'm going to read them off here. I got them written down. They go to St. Louis, then they play New England at home, then they go to New Orleans, then they play Atlanta at home, then they go to Green Bay, and then they play Detroit at home. So 6 games right there at the beginning that seem to be very tough. The Vikings, frankly, in that first 6 games would do incredibly well to go, 2-4, which means that it could be a rough start, a rough go for this Vikings team heading into the 2014 season, especially at the very beginning. Some of the keys to the success of this team in this season to come. Bridgewater's got to play like the top 5 pick that he was supposed to be heading into the 2013 college football season, the top 5 pick that a lot of us envisioned him being. The top 5 pick that a lot of people, notably myself, think that he still actually was and should have been. He needs to step up and take reign of the team. He needs to step up and show that he is the future of this franchise at the quarterback position. Obviously, Adrian Peterson is a huge key to the success of the team, and he will be as long as he is there playing for the purple and gold of Minnesota. I think another key for them offensively is they need to find a way to get their explosive playmaking weapon on the outside, Cordero Patterson, the God-blessed football. I think another reason that Leslie Frazier and his staff should have been fired and deserved to be fired in 2013 was the fact that they couldn't find more ways to get the ball in Cordero Patterson's hands. Okay, he's questionable in his route running. You find a way to get that type of weapon involved in your offense, ding-dong, dumb dicks. Seriously. It seemed like every few times he touched the ball, he made big plays happen. It seemed like every 10 or 15 times he touched the ball, he was scoring a touchdown either in a return game or on an end around, a reverse, or as a pass catcher. You got to find a way to get the ball in the hands of perhaps your most explosive offensive weapon. That's going to be key for this offense in 2014. And they need to get some pass rush out of their front 7. I'm not sure if they have the Jimmies and Joes to be able to execute the X's and O's up front, but they got to find a way to replace Jared Allen's pass rush. They got to find a way to get more consistent pressure than they did last season. Looking at 2014, I do think the Vikings will end up finishing last in this division, just like they did in 2013. That doesn't necessarily mean that they won't show strides or they won't show improvements. I think they will show some strides and they will show some improvements, even if I think they will ultimately end up finishing 6-10, whereas last year they finished 5-10-1. I think it'll be a better 6-10, and it will point to a more promising future for the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings fans, be patient. I think better times are ahead. But I think you'd be a little ambitious to expect them to start really happening in 2014, even though you could see some positive signs for the future.